Yeah.
Can we watch that?
Yeah. I'm pretty sure I still have it. So yeah,
We're going.
we're back.
We're back.
It's 2018. We haven't done a video in, what is it, 8 months or something like that, whenever 2017 ended. But SNS is back and better than ever. We're missing Corey as usual, but
He's still in Denver.
yeah, he's
He's
still
married
alive.
now.
Corey from Denver. Yeah, he's married. So his life's over. But I guess we're previewing the Pac-12 and kind of interesting off-season for that conference. Lots of coaching changes, a lot of stuff going on. So I don't know. Do we want to, I guess, recap last year just really quick for the conference?
Yeah, a little bit.
Pretty
Down year for the Pac-12.
Mhm.
No playoffs. They were abysmal in bowl games, and that's kind of how you end up with a bunch of new coaches, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't really remember.
Kind of hit it on the head with our predictions. Full in for USC.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think everybody in the group had that as a season preview outlook for last year.
Mhm.
It might be a little bit different this year. We don't know just yet.
Yeah, I don't know yet. I don't know your picks.
We had some Heisman dark horses in that conference last year. I think there might be some Heisman picks as well in that conference this year.
So, yeah, it's possible.
Some turnover in the conference as well as far as coaches go.
Yeah, a lot.
I think the breakout of this week's pod for the Pac-12 is we'll get division by division. Just talk about the coach turnover, maybe a surprise Heisman pick or two.
Sure.
And possible projections for the actual conference as well as national title contenders if there are any, right?
Yeah, I think. I guess we'll save the actual division and conference champion predictions for the very end or whatever. But let's start with the coaching changes. I guess we might as well figure out who's coaching who and what they're going to look like.
There's a lot going on.
Let's start in the north. We'll start from the bottom up. So Oregon State, they've
got who now? Jonathan Smith.
Yeah,
the former quarterback.
Okay, so you know who it is.
Shocker.
Yeah,
Shocker.
you and I were saying that we didn't know who that was, and apparently Phil says he was a star. Is that true?
Still don't know
he
who he was.
No.
He was quarterback when they started to actually become good. I'd say early 2000s.
Did he play in the league?
I don't think so.
Well, then how's he a star?
Star in Oregon.
Yeah.
Star in Corvallis.
Okay, yeah, fair enough. All right, so he is a first-year coach. He has no head coaching experience. Week 1, he plays at some school that's also OSU, so that'll be fun for him. But
38-point dogs. Should probably lay the points, too.
We're getting into the betting right away. I may have already bet it. I think it's going to go to 42, so I think it's fine.
Yeah.
I really do. I think all the Homer fans will push it. I think, so I don't really know anything about this coach. I don't know really anything about Oregon State. I just know they're bad.
They're bad at every position, really.
So
and they have a coach who has really no coaching experience. So they're just rebooting here.
I mean, I don't know. Is there really anything else to talk about with them? I was going to ask with some of these new coaches, do we see them? Where do we see them within the next 5 years? Do they win a conference title at where they're at now? And clearly with Oregon State, I think it'd be kind of insane to say that they would.
Yeah, unlikely. Only based on the division and the conference altogether.
Right.
I don't see Stanford, Oregon, or Washington, at least all three of them, falling behind Oregon State. I think Oregon State's ceiling is probably third, maybe fourth
sometimes they
in their division.
I mean, they're just...
And that's with a really good year and some other programs with down years. So
good year for them, in the next few years, would just be to get to a bowl.
Right.
Yeah. I guess we'll move on to Oregon then. They basically promoted Mario Cristobal. Is that correct?
Yeah.
He was tagged to DC.
Third coach in 3 years.
So it's kind of interesting because Oregon has had a good amount of success to where you wouldn't think they would, change their coaches that often. But it's not. I mean, they're not a premier program, so I guess some coaches take bigger jobs.
Tiger
left. Yeah, Tiger left for FSU. Chip Kelly left for the NFL.
It is weird. They went from being in the national championship game, 4 years ago now, and they've had 3 coaches in the last 3 years.
Well, and I think it was also proven that Marcus Mariota was really, really good, and Helfrich maybe wasn't ready to be a head coach yet. Like everything I've ever heard about the guy, he gets a lot of praise as like a play caller, and as an OC. But some guys aren't meant to be the head guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just your program's gonna suck if that's the case. So
yeah.
Christian
The program when he took over the program was in a really stable spot too, so he was able to keep it going at the time.
Yeah. So,
Benefited from Kelly.
but Cristobal, I think he was actually pretty decent at FIU. Did he get fired at the end? He must have if he was. I guess like I don't know. Did he leave to be a DC again? Like I don't remember what happened.
Yeah, I don't remember what the deal was there, but at least they kept.
Said he was 27 and 48 at FIU. I mean, I don't know. FIU sucks, but
so they've got a little bit of continuity since it's like they've hired a guy from within.
Right.
Kept the DC, right?
Yep, Jim Leavitt, defensive coordinator.
The other side of the Pac-12, right? We're done with new coaches there. Yeah.
Yeah,
South.
we can go to the South now.
Nick and I were talking. We didn't even remember Chip Kelly is now at UCLA.
Big hire for them.
Which is, huge hire. Transitional year for them, flipping systems from Mora to him.
They're going to suck ass.
Some weak, thin line play for them, which obviously is never good, no matter what.
Both sides of the ball, this team was marshmallow soft.
Oh, wow. There you go. Call
it. I think,
first call out of the season.
I think they were dead last in run defense last year.
Yeah,
possibly.
they were
terrible.
There were many games where they gave up like 200-300 yards rushing to them.
Yeah.
So they're quite soft.
But going off your question about where do you see them in a couple years?
Yeah.
Now that's a team you could see competing for the South title in 2 to 3 years for sure.
Yeah,
the way Kelly recruits, the way that area
facilities,
the way that area has high school recruits.
Well, shit, I mean Mora. I think he sucked ass, and he was recruiting pretty well.
Yeah,
recruiting some big-time guys.
UCLA is a program that I feel like people always kind of think of as like a sleeping giant, maybe just because they're in LA. They've got that access to all that talent, and it's like if they ever had a good coach, maybe they can actually compete for the Pac-12 or even more than that. So we'll see what Chip Kelly does.
All right, so we all think
the laugh of the Pac-12.
Yeah, so Arizona State hired former NFL coach Herm Edwards, former ESPN analyst Herm Edwards. He hasn't coached in a long time, and
what a fucking terrible hire.
Yeah,
holy shit.
I mean, to be honest, like I don't really know what to say about this hire. I think from everything I understand, it's going to be very reliant on the coordinators. And
they're trying this weird, unorthodox way of like having the coaches set up, aren't they? I don't know. He's just like the CEO of the team,
like a figurehead.
He's trying to be like kind of what Paterno was when he was like barely able to like walk and speak.
Yeah, but he only had like 40 years of experience.
Yeah.
Proven college success.
Right, and a program that has like the ability to actually hire good coordinators. Like I don't really see coordinators at Arizona State being like elite level guy. I mean, maybe not yet, probably. You know what I mean?
I think he'll be gone in less than 3 years.
Yeah, so like where do we think do we think Arizona State even comes close to competing for a South title?
No.
Oh no, not that much. I mean they'll be solid, I guess, possibly.
What's solid? Like 7 wins?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
A very low ceiling there.
Yeah.
Solid by their standards, I'd say.
Yeah. I don't know. It's weird. I think it's a desperation play, and honestly, I'm
it
not
it
a
was
fan of it.
It made no sense.
All right, let's move on to Arizona. They actually hired a coach that has had some success. Kevin Sumlin was very good at Houston. Then he went to Texas A&M. Had a few pretty interesting seasons there. They always seem to be very good in the beginning of the season, and then they fade hard. And I don't know if that's coaching or what the deal is, but it seemed to be
maybe he was just getting worn down by the SEC. We don't know.
Well, he was in a tough division. There's a lot of expectations on him. Yeah, so I mean, I kind of think Arizona seems like a pretty good fit for somebody like him. Like, there's not as much pressure. He seems to have like a good offensive mind. Like they like offense. They don't really play defense. So,
this team last year, I mean, conference games. The average score of their conference games was 40-39. So this is a team that scored a ton.
Take the over.
Yeah, scored a ton, gave up a ton. Yeah, take a lot of overs probably. But yeah, he comes in, and this team, I think, they can be competitive this year. I don't think they're gonna win the division or really have a chance to win the division, but they could definitely finish like second in this division this year.
They're like a true wild card. Like like Phil has them like some of his like power ratings or computers, like some of them have them at 11-1, and then some have them at 6-6.
Yeah.
So
quick side note, you just made reference to it. We are using all these projections, basing it off of the Phil Steele 2018 preview magazine. I know we'd like to reference him quite a bit, just based off the type of info that he provides in print form. We also,
the Godfather.
Also like to go off of Bill C. As well as Athlon magazine as well for the preseason edition. So if you see us or referencing any statistics, it'll most likely be coming from Phil Steele 2018 preview mag, available in bookstores near you.
Are you getting paid to plug it?
We share the same last name.
Yeah, that's true.
Related.
I get a portion of the proceeds.
All right, so yeah, that covers the coaches. I guess we can start getting into how we think this conference is.
How things shake out.
Yeah. So let's start in the North, I guess.
Yeah.
Clearly, Washington seems to be the overwhelming favorite to win that division, but there's a couple other teams that I think people think have a shot to win that division. So I guess we'll start with you. You can give, I don't know if you feel like giving in order how you think they're going to finish, or do you just want to do the top three? But who do you think wins the division? Who's a surprise team?
I think there's three teams in the mix here. Washington, obviously, at the top. Then you got Stanford. Then you got Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
Washington comes in as the clear favorite. Jake Browning's back. Myles Gaskin is back for, it seems like, his 8th season.
Yeah, he's been there a long time.
So they bring a lot back. Really good in the secondary. Last year, they were coming off a year when they lost a bunch of NFL guys in the secondary, and they didn't fall off too much, and then now they bring all those guys back. So it should be pretty solid, definitely in the back seven. Stanford, you got Bryce Love coming back. He's going to be probably the Heisman favorite going into the year, coming off a 2,000-yard season. Yeah. Even though he was banged up a little bit, he still had an amazing season. Yeah. Bring back 3, I believe, on the O-line. It was a great O-line. That was definitely a huge factor in his success last year.
No doubt.
I always liked David Shaw as a coach. In fact, both the coaches, Washington and Stanford, like the coaching on these teams. And then Oregon, who I've got 3rd in the division, very heavily dependent on Justin Herbert last year. He's going to be up there as far as quarterbacks go in next year's NFL draft on a lot of people's boards. Last year, when he got hurt, Oregon just fell off a cliff and was a completely different team, so it's going to be a big deal to keep him healthy this year, and if they do, we'll see how things go for them.
Okay. Steele, you want to give, or who do you? Well, did you say? Did you say who you have winning the division, or?
My pick's Washington.
Okay. So you do like what? Is there? Yeah. Do you think is there any chance Cal or Washington State could sneak up and win that division?
No,
not realistically.
I think Washington State's going to struggle this year. They lost everyone on offense, but I mean sometimes Pirate does some amazing things.
Yeah.
I think Cal is probably the 4th best team in the division.
Sneaky. Corey from Denver seems to like Cal a lot, but it's more like
more of a value
betting itch. Yeah. I don't know. Well,
they were so atrocious last year. There's going to be a lot of value on them.
Yeah.
Because people tend to bet with, revisionist history.
Value.
Yeah, exactly. With just last year's results in mind.
All right, Steele, why don't you give your North run?
For the North, I agree. I think it's Washington's division to lose, but I actually am personally going to take, with a little bit of value, Stanford as the North winner. That game that they play head-to-head is at Washington, so that might be kind of the coin flip factor between the two. I think Stanford's season is going to ride and die with KJ Costello,
I think so.
At quarterback. I think what Stanford lacked for the last couple of years since Andrew Luck was a quarterback that could throw the ball.
Mhm.
So they were so heavily dependent on tight end play, running back play, and KJ last year proved, at least in the Notre Dame game specifically, his ability to throw the ball and sling it, which just opened up the field so much more for Bryce Love when he was healthy.
They did play a bunch of different quarterbacks last year,
Right,
and then he kind of emerged as
right.
as the guy.
He was very, very highly recruited. So yeah, he should be good. But anyway.
And then Addison touched on it. Oregon's quarterback health is going to dictate their season. Even with healthy Herbert, I don't know if they can eclipse Stanford and Washington. I think their ceiling's probably third or second. New coaching staff, even though there's a little bit of familiarity there. I don't see Cal coming up from the bottom. Definitely not Oregon State. Washington State could win, a surprise game here or there, but I don't think enough to actually win the division. So I think you got Washington coming out of the North with, they're going to be the heavy favorite. I personally would bet Stanford because I think you'll get a little bit of value on a 50-50 shot coming out of the North. So I would take Stanford if you're going to bet it.
Yeah.
But, you can't go wrong with either of those teams. Both really well coached, as Addison pointed out as well. Going to be solid on defense and special teams as well, which is obviously huge, especially if you're talking playoff talk.
Yeah.
Which the Pac-12.
We'll get into that after.
We'll get into
we'll get into that. Okay, so yeah, I don't really have a ton to add. I think for the last few days when I was looking at this, I was going to pick Stanford, but I think Washington is pretty damn balanced, and I just like that they have that game against them at home. So I'm going to pick Washington. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Stanford won the division. As Steele, alluded to, they're very solid.
I think both of those teams can definitely compete. For this.
Yeah, Oregon. It's kind of interesting. I'm looking at their schedule. They're going to start 3-0, and they have Stanford and then at Cal. At Cal could be kind of tricky for them. But let's say they come off a bye at home against Washington on October 13th. I mean,
that is big. They're coming off a bye, hosting Washington,
and Washington is not off a bye, so that could be really interesting. I think though.
They host both of those.
I think Oregon's going to lose either Stanford or at Cal. So, and I think Herbert's going to get hurt. I just honestly I think just he's going to get hit too many times.
He'll get a little dinged up and then he'll sit out.
Yeah,
for NFL or something.
He might. I don't know, but I'm with you guys. I just think it's too much of a risk to really consider them too seriously. I know a lot of people are. Corey from Denver thinks they're a sneaky team, and they could win the division. I think it's way more realistic than a team like Cal or Washington State. But I'm gonna go with Washington and not really say much more about it. So Addison, let's move on to the South. Do you have a clear champion in mind? Do you have are there teams that are ranked 3 or 4 that could potentially win? What do you think?
This one I do have a clear favorite for the division. That's USC. Team I mentioned before as who I think is probably going to be second in this division is Arizona, although behind USC I think it's kind of up for grabs as far as who finishes second. There's a bunch of teams there that I don't really see a whole lot of difference between, and I think that's usually how this division goes anyway.
Recently, that's what it seems.
USC, I know everyone's going to make a big deal out of Darnold being gone, obviously. It's a big loss, too. They also lose Ronald Jones. Wow. But I really like the talent on this team.
There's a lot.
Yeah, there's a ton of talent. I mean, when we're talking about the teams that recruit the best in the whole country, you got obviously Ohio State, Bama up there, Georgia, I'd say, and I think USC is competes right or recruits right at that
level. They own the West. They take care of Southern California.
Yeah, as far as teams in this conference, USC is definitely in their own tier as far as recruiting goes. So I think that's going to make the difference for them. What I do want to see is they returned 4 guys in the O-line, but this is an O-line that against good teams we saw struggle sometimes, and especially in the bowl game against Ohio State, their O-line got absolutely dismantled. If they want to compete at like a playoff level, I want to see their O-line play better than it was last year.
Yeah, because this year you got some really impressive defensive lines from a few blue chip program. So I agree. Yeah. Steele, do you have an idea of who you like in the South? Any surprise teams? Or Addison, did you want to mention like how many teams in that division do you think before you go on to Steele you think can actually win the division?
I don't know. I have USC as a
But just
clear
like
favorite,
it's an open and shut.
It'll be interesting to see if Khalil Tate can continue what he was doing last year. He really burst onto the scene, came out of nowhere. So he's going to be another guy who's going to be Heisman favorite going into the year, and see if there's any drop off there.
Okay, cool. Steele?
Yeah, so I think just the same way we predicted it last year, I think there's a pretty big consensus with USC being miles and miles ahead of the talent level in the South. Might not be the case with Kelly at UCLA in a couple years. We'll see what is his name at Arizona.
Herm?
Someone.
Oh,
No,
someone.
Herm has no shot. Someone at Arizona. We'll see what he can do there as well. And Utah's always a physical, tough team, good defense, good special teams. So USC is going to be my pick to win the South. If you're feeling like a flyer on any good value, I think Colorado would be my surprise team.
Wow, okay.
Their schedule is brutal, where they've got back-to-back weeks of USC and Washington.
Ooh, that's 0-2.
Yeah, so if they can start out hot, I believe they go to Nebraska, which will be, I think, a decent test for some, meddling, programs that are trying to
Big 12 matchup,
yeah,
right?
trying
Oh,
to
Big
trying
12
to pull
rivals,
themselves up.
Colorado could beat them, yeah.
So I
They got the Rams week 1 in Denver.
don't see Arizona doing it. Utah is kind of a I don't believe you until you prove me wrong type of situation where they're always going to be solid, but I'm never going to lay money on them to win
Always
the division.
solid, but you don't think that they're like special at any position.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Except maybe punter.
Exactly. UCLA, again, a couple years from now, I think they might be pretty good, and then Herm is going to be the cellar dweller for quite some time there in the South. I don't see them doing much.
Yeah, but he's got cool socks.
Yeah,
man.
right. He's so hip. He's gonna bring in all those.
The kids love him,
recruits.
man. All the 2-stars love him.
Yeah, that's
Well,
right.
given this year is that he should have a good receiving core.
Oh boy. Right.
Right, so,
Well, the Pac-12.
Yeah.
They're gonna line up in the I formation.
Oh, another funny thing about Herm, I think he's going to be running a 3-3-5 defensively.
That might not be so bad in that conference.
Yeah,
but
in this conference you can actually
Big Ten, you can't
maybe
do
get
that.
away with it.
SEC,
So, yeah.
you can't do that. Yeah. All right, so you guys clearly like USC. I don't disagree with that. I like USC a lot. They have an incredible amount of talent. I think what makes me actually think I actually am a little higher on Utah this year, as you guys kind of said, like prove me wrong type of deal. I think Whittingham's a really good coach, and the only thing that makes me hold back on them a little bit is their schedule is pretty rough. They draw Washington and Oregon out of the North, and then they play at Stanford. They play week 2. They play at Northern Illinois, not a gimme game. So
Oh yeah, they draw the top 3 out
Yeah.
of the North.
oh, did they get?
Oregon, Stanford, Washington.
Oh wow, yeah. So I mean, they have a really brutal schedule, but
Yeah.
I do think this team could win the division. I really do.
USC game is at home.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Homecoming too.
Not even go 0-3 against the North.
Yeah. Arizona, I mean, I think it's possible, but I don't think in my mind it's that realistic. I
Too
think,
bad defensively, possibly.
Yeah, I think I'm with Steele though, where like he kind of said if you want to take like a betting flyer on Colorado, I would say I would bet Arizona as a flyer just because of Khalil Tate. I think they have the offensive firepower to maybe outscore some teams and get some upsets. They are really bad on defense though, so.
Yeah.
I don't know. I clearly think USC is the most talented team. If they had any coach but Clay Helton, I think that
is the
that's
thing
the
about
always
USC.
holds me back with them right now, man.
Not
Like,
a big
I-
Clay
Great
Howard guy.
Yeah.
Great hire.
Yeah, I obviously Big
Tremendous
Bang
hire.
fans love him.
What does Phil rank Clay Helton as first
Oh,
coaches?
I don't know. Probably too high, to be honest.
He ranks him 5th.
That's pretty embarrassing.
That's pretty embarrassing when you're at
Yeah.
Like, that's
With that many new coaches
Yeah.
in the
Yeah,
Pac-12.
seriously. Yeah, he's automatically ahead of like 6 of the guys.
Yeah.
He has McIntyre ahead of him. Whittingham should be ahead of him, but I mean, like,
Yeah.
McIntyre, and then, Washington and Stanford, Sean Peterson. So, I mean,
But he does have Whittingham above him.
I mean, I would rather have someone than Clay Helton. And USC could have had someone.
I agree.
But, yeah, so, all right, so we have, Addison and I both have favorites. We have chalk. We have Washington playing USC in the title game. Steele has as mainly a betting pick, but he does have Stanford against USC, which is, I mean, that's totally fine, I think, in a lot of people's eyes.
Repeat of last year's game.
Yeah, so, all right, I guess it comes down to this now. Who wins the Pac-12 championship, and how many of these teams are legit national title contenders? So, like, last year we touched base, just to kind of give you guys an idea of what I'm talking about. Just because we think a team can win a Power 5 conference doesn't mean that we think they're necessarily like a foregone national title contender. Like, yeah, that gives you a big leg up as far as maybe making the playoff. But then you got to win 2 playoff games against usually really elite programs. So I think from year to year it changes. But how do you see it this year? How many teams in the Pac-12 do you think can actually win the national title?
I'm gonna say 2. Might be more than anyone else here. Well,
maybe not.
I'm saying 2
Who
because
is Washington?
Yeah.
I think?
Yeah, Washington, USC.
Probably the teams he has in the title.
Yeah.
I would think.
Well, I don't know. I mean, maybe he thinks the South is so bad that USC just cleans, wipes the floor with them. But then he's like, well, Stanford
Okay,
misses
good
out,
point.
but they could be. Yeah.
Valid.
Yeah.
I'm going to throw USC in there because I think they have the same amount of talent in terms of recruiting, star ratings, as the other teams that are going to be in the playoffs.
Okay.
That doesn't mean, like we talked about, we don't think Clay Helton's a great coach. Doesn't mean they're going to be coached up well enough to beat those teams. I'm just saying that their talent level is there.
I don't think there's any argument with that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's fine. Yeah. Steele, who wins the conference? How many teams are national title contenders in your eyes?
Yeah, so I think USC is going to win it.
Okay.
Actually, in a slight upset
Over Stanford?
over Stanford.
Okay.
I think that'll probably be a coin flip game to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think, shockingly, I think Notre Dame might beat USC the last week of the season. Did they play them last week?
Yeah, I believe it's their
So
last game.
that might actually hinder them in terms of the playoff committee's eyes and rankings. I actually think the Pac-12 forecasting a little bit to our other conference previews. I think the Pac-12 is actually left out completely.
Okay.
Could they win a head-to-head matchup if they were paired with Ohio State or if Michigan was in there or Georgia, Bama?
Right.
Yeah, very much so. But I think
Can they win 2 of those matchups?
I think coaching.
Yeah.
I think coaching holds USC back, and I think a little bit of lack of diversity on offense for Stanford might hold them back, especially against an elite program.
Yeah.
Going back to the KJ Costello, how good is your good type deal. I
Yeah.
mean, if he can sling it all over the place, then maybe. But 2 games back to back against, like a Bama, Georgia, or, Bama, whoever,
Right.
is probably unrealistic for just the level of, where I see Stanford at right now. So I think the Pac-12 gets left out, but I think USC is your winner. I think USC by default is essentially going to come out of the South. But I do think they might have, I think they'll have 1, if not 2, possibly 3 total losses. They play at Stanford, so
Right.
there's going to be a potential rematch in the Pac-12 championship game for that. They also go to Texas, who I think will be improved.
At Arizona, at Utah,
And I think
Notre Dame.
right,
I mean,
and
they
they play back-to-back weeks of rivals where they're at UCLA, which
Yeah.
isn't a travel situation, but still
it's
still a rivalry game with another, so to speak, rivalry the following week with Notre Dame coming to town.
Sure.
Which, depending on how their season plays out, could have a lot of money and a lot of biscuits on the line in terms of the playoff projections. So, but I don't think anybody from the Pac-12 is actually going to be competing in the playoff. And if for some reason that doesn't shake out and they are in, I don't see either Stanford or USC winning 2 games in those situations to make the championship run.
Okay. So we'll give Corey from Denver's picks, and then a couple other people's, like I guess just for fun. Corey has Washington playing USC, and he has Washington winning
Yeah.
the conference, and then he said he does think Washington is a national title contender.
Did he?
He did. He did.
Can we verify?
I swear to God, look on your phone. He said they're the only one that's a natty contender. I asked that specific question. I know. I was a little surprised. And
I mean, I said I like Washington too. I like USC more though.
talent-wise, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. Coaching-wise, Clay helped get his ass whipped by Saban and Urban and Dabo every day.
Dabo.
Brian J. from Columbus, who's been on the pod, I think, a couple of times. He likes I don't remember. I think he picked Washington and USC, and then I think he had
Washington, right?
I think he had Washington winning, and he said I don't think he thinks any of them are national title contenders. The roommate, when we've done the pod, in my very red basement, she has Stanford playing USC, so the same as you. That should make you feel great about your picks.
Yeah. Burn the ticket.
And
Burn the ticket.
She says that she has, I believe, Stanford winning the Pac-12, and
Wow.
she says, quote, none of these teams can win a championship. So
Also,
I
So on
think
the
that's
same
pretty much the
train.
same. So yeah, yeah. So I have Washington against USC to recap. I actually have USC winning the conference.
So us three are unanimous with USC.
Yeah, I think I'm with Steele though, in a sense. Like this is kind of like a tricky one for me because I don't like to just write off teams that have like a good amount of talent to win like definitely like one game scenarios. Like I think Washington could beat Ohio State in like a one game scenario, but is Washington going to beat SC, Ohio State, and then beat Bama or Clemson? Like it's just a lot to get through. I think for these teams, I agree with you where I think USC has the talent to where they could pull it off. So I guess I have to say I think USC could win the national title. The big thing with them is, like Steele said, the schedule. If they get through the schedule where they only have 1 to 2 losses, maybe max, they probably just have to have one, I would think, with how I think we are going to project the teams to finish this year in the other conferences. USC needs to have somebody step up at quarterback, though. That's going to be big for them.
And one of the things about USC, I think is a team, we see this a ton of times with USC too, when you have like young talent, is they play a lot better at the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, though, they're at Stanford and at Texas,
and
weeks
could,
2 and 3. So I mean,
yeah.
there's a big chance they slip up there.
Yeah, and so I think the big thing for me is why I'm really hesitant on Pac-12 and Big 12 teams for the most part, as far as like national title contenders, is I think their line play is often kind of suspect against some of like the very like premier programs. Not that USC's not, but it's just right now I don't think either Washington or USC has like the lines to maybe. I think they would get overwhelmed. Like Washington didn't play terribly against Bama. Was it 2 years ago? But you could just tell they were suffocated all game long on the line. Both lines couldn't compete with them. Bama was going to grind that win out pretty easily. Stanford does have usually the line play, but as Steele said, they lack, I think, the playmakers and just the overall, I think, just explosiveness that you really need to compete for national titles. So I guess I'll say USC has a chance, but I really don't think any of these teams this year are legitimate national title contenders.
I mean, do any of us, Steele obviously doesn't, do you think that the Pac-12 will have a playoff team?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I probably should have thought about that before we did the pod.
Because my answer is also no.
I don't think so, because I don't want to give stuff away, but I mean, like,
we'll get into the other conferences.
I think one of the conferences is getting 2 teams in again, and it might be the same fucking conference. So it was last year. So I don't have any of these teams making the playoff. I guess So I guess then I don't think anybody's a national title.
Yeah.
I'm kind of contradicting myself. Like
Yeah, we talked about this irrelevant conference tonight.
Yeah. I mean, it could be interesting. Like,
yeah, like we said, it'll be a fun conference,
like
especially with a lot of
games,
the new coaches and everything.
Yeah, I like the Pac-12 after dark. Like, I like getting these random texts.
Gotta have some after midnight football to come home and watch. It's always a great
and more importantly, to bet on.
Yeah,
clearly, like it's fun betting over. So, yes, I mean, unless you guys have anything else to add, we've covered the Pac-12.
What about like Heisman guys?
Oh yeah, we can do that real quick.
Yeah. So
I don't know.
Bryce Love obviously is probably the top guy going into the season. Mentioned Khalil Tate,
Herbert. I think Browning's kind of like a
Browning is a guy too. Browning 2 years ago was he put up Heisman numbers, and then last year he wasn't terrible, but he fell off a decent amount.
I think teams kind of started to figure out he has limitations.
Yeah.
Like when we get into heated debates about JT Barrett, like there's limitations. So
that's true. He lost a couple of his receivers like Ross.
Yeah.
It's a lot of Heisman contenders for a shitty conference.
It is actually.
They don't play defense and offense.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, these guys they're going to rack up a lot of numbers on these shitty defenses.
So I think Myles Gaskin is potentially one too.
Yeah.
Also, Stephen Carr for USC running back.
You had to tell me his position.
I mean, I'm just saying.
Is he another? Is he
I
another?
think he can burn. I think
yeah,
he can burn.
Yeah.
So I mean, we'll see. But
it wouldn't shock me if USC had some like two-way player that's like, really good or something.
Yeah, I mean, just look at third or fourth team and just find a USC guy. Oh, Michael Pittman. Is that Michael Pittman's kid? Like that used to play in the NFL?
Junior?
Oh yeah, and we got freshman Amon-Ra St. Brown at receiver.
Oh yeah.
The missed recruit from the
wah wah.
That's a shame.
So yeah, we got some Heisman candidates in a conference that clearly doesn't really play a lot of defense, so that helps them. I think when we discuss the Big 12, that will be possibly the case as well. I really haven't looked at the Big 12 yet because I don't care, but I don't know what conference we're going to cover next, but next time we're on
Big 12, maybe if we can get Corey on, we'll do ACC.
Yeah, we always need to start with like the conferences that we make fun of the most.
Yeah, these conferences, the Pac-12 and Big 12, we like to say that they play like 8-man football or whatever.
I mean, if anybody wants to debate that on the channel, we can. But I mean,
we should. Last thing, we should talk about these conference odds.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
How do we think about these? Yeah. So you got Washington plus 140, Stanford plus 300, USC plus 300. And you got a big drop down to Oregon at plus 1,000.
Maybe that's why Corey liked this.
And this is to win the Pac-12.
Yeah.
Win the Pac-12.
Some value there, I think.
Yeah.
Potentially.
I mean, of those, I would take USC, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. Steele, any thoughts on that? Or
you know where my money's going. It's going straight to Stanford.
Straight on Herm.
Any of the lower teams, like Washington State plus 1,400, I'm surprised that's that
high.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have them way lower.
I would look more specifically into division by division winner. I know what he's got pulled up doesn't offer that, but there's books out there that will offer division by division opposed to conference winner, because obviously that additional game is huge, and it's against someone who's probably pretty good from the other side of the actual conference or the other division. So if you can find division by division odds, look into that. Like I said earlier, Colorado or maybe Arizona, Nick mentioned, but Stanford from the north,
right? Colorado plus 2,000
to win it all,
to win the conference.
Yeah.
Arizona plus 1,600, Cal plus 2,500. Yeah, sorry, Corey. Yeah. Maybe Corey will take that. I would take them over Washington State though.
Washington State's a little high. That's
I mean, they lost their all-time leading passer, and then the other guy killed himself.
Yeah. Jesus.
So,
a little thin at quarterback.
Yeah.
A little thin at quarterback.
All right. So clearly, a Power 5 conference that will provide some entertainment and some good betting opportunities, but in our minds, not probably a national player this year. So
not championship material.
Yeah. So until the next pod, this is
Bye.
us from S&S. So
All right.
yeah.
Let's get the season. 43 days.